Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lavender Cottage Fibre Arts podcast. This is going to be a knit and chat video. I think it might be our 5th knit and chat, but I'm not 100% certain. So we just work on a project and have a chat about a crafty topic, sometimes related to fibre arts, but today we'll be talking about something else. Before we go any further though, we just want to acknowledge that we're recording this video on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and extend our respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and also to any Indigenous Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who happen to be watching this video. So we'd like to say welcome if you're new to our channel, or welcome back if you've seen one of our other videos and you've come back to watch another one. We're very happy to have you here. Basically, my name is Anna and this is Pia. And so we're twin sisters from Melbourne in Australia, and we make videos about predominantly about fibre arts. So at the moment it's mostly knitting, but also some crochet, weaving, embroidery, sewing. That's probably most of the fibre arts related.
I think
can't think of anything else. Neither of us do any spinning.
No.
And so we interleave a normal podcast episode where we show like whips and finished objects and all of that with a knit and chat video, which is just where, and it's not always knit and chat, it might be
Embroider and chat,
crochet and chat, but some kind of fibre arts and chatting video, and so that's what this video is. And we thought that for this one, because in our last podcast episode, Pia actually had quite a few ceramics FOs and a couple of whips as well, I think.
Yeah, those bells that I still haven't done anything about.
That's okay.
Those, but I mean, I suppose that's like every crafty person, like,
you sort
things
of
take a long time,
bits and pieces here and there kind of thing. But yeah, quite a few people commented that they really enjoyed seeing Pia's ceramics things, and a few people saying, I've always wanted to try something like that. So we thought for today's knit and chat, Pia would actually, I guess tell us a little bit about how she got started doing ceramics, and I guess I don't know, any sort of tips or anything like that that she might have for anybody who hasn't ever done ceramics before but thinks that they might like to give it a go. So how long have you been doing it for now, do you reckon?
I think probably maybe about 5 years, but like on and off, and I'm definitely nowhere near sort of like professional. Like, I'm very much just like a hobbyist. Like, I think I would love to have more time to dedicate to it, but I just have not got to the level of being able to, dedicate a lot of time to becoming a real sort of master at it. So I'm still at the amateur stage, but I do like, I think a lot of people in ceramics, particularly people who are professionals, will find like a particular niche or like a particular style, which I think obviously for like marketing purposes that also is like an essential part. If you're trying to sell your product, that you have sort of like an identifiable style or brand or whatever, whereas I just really like sort of experimenting and trying out different things
and do whatever you feel like.
Yeah.
And what was the first, like, how did you, I don't even remember, like...
Yeah, I think so. I think there's like a pottery supply place close by to here that has like an annual open day. And at their open day, they have, I think you can try like a half-hour session on the pottery wheel. And like, you obviously don't keep what you make, because what you make probably is like, not even good for an ashtray or something. Yeah. But... just to like try it out and get the feel of it. And so then I think I enjoy that. So then I sign up for just like a 1-day like weekend workshop, and then I sign up to like a term class, like I can't remember if it was 6 weeks or 8 weeks like class for wheel throwing. And there's also there was like a community, like neighborhood house, community center type place quite close to where I live as well, that had a hand building class, so making pottery but just with your hands and tools, but not on a wheel, and that was quite affordable, I think, because it was kind of subsidized by the council, so I signed up to that as well.
And that's pretty, I feel like a lot of, at least in Australia anyway, it seems like a lot of like community centres or neighbourhood houses have ceramics classes or courses or?
Yeah, I think so.
And so do you, like you sort of, I guess alluded to this like wheel throwing versus hand building.
Yeah.
Like do most people tend to sort of specialize in one or the other?
I think most people would probably do one or the other. And I guess the other like genre of pottery that I have not done at all, but that I think there's been sort of maybe a bit of a revival of it on sort of like Instagram and things like that, because I guess it's a bit retro, is slip casting. And so that's where you use liquid clay, which is called slip, and you pour it into a plaster mould.
Oh, but is that something that sort of amateurs can get into, or is it more?
I've seen a lot of people who've just bought molds on like somewhere like Gumtree or eBay or Facebook Marketplace.
Okay.
Like, and a lot of them are sort of like quite vintage, kind of retro looking. But I think it's just like a very different skill, which I guess like I mean I'm not an expert in any of this, but like I have seen sort of some like controversy in like, you know, online forums and stuff that slip casting is not really like a proper art form, because you're just pouring something into a pre-made mold and that sort of thing. But then I think there's a lot of skill. Like a lot of potters will make their own molds. And then like you're still like doing all the painting, like decorating. Yeah, and I think there's also like skill involved in like still like, even though you're using a mold, there is skill involved in like the production to make sure things dry at the proper times and
and to be honest, I'm sure some people say like, you know, knitting and crochet, like if you're just making someone else's pattern, there's no creativity because you're just following the instructions. But I don't agree with that.
I suppose it's kind of the same. And I think it's like depending on what is the purpose of you doing this as well. Like if you are doing something to sort of creatively express your, you know, your vision of whatever, like then okay, maybe you wouldn't do that by knitting a jumper, but like you might be knitting a jumper just because you want to have a jumper, like there's nothing wrong with that kind of thing. And I think people who sort of like look down on people because they do something or whatever, like if they're just doing it because they enjoy it, like I don't really think that anyone should hold that against someone.
And this slip casting though, have you ever seen classes for that, or do you think that's something?
I think some places will have like workshops.
Okay, but maybe
for it, but I've not seen anywhere that has sort of like a term.
It has to be something that you kind of have to pursue on your own, whereas it sounds like the hand building and the wheel throwing is more like a...
I think wheel throwing classes are very popular.
And like, I guess in terms of like getting started, like if someone was interested to give it a try, do these classes, do they provide everything, or do you actually have to go out and buy some of the materials yourself?
I think like most classes like that, because I looked at a few different places, you know, just to see what different prices are and stuff like that. Most places like the materials and like the tools and obviously the wheel itself is all kind of provided. For you. Sorry, what am I doing here?
Oh, sorry, have I distracted you?
Hold on, I just need to count my stitches. 3, 6, 9, 12.
Yeah, I realised
18.
I'm knitting. Maybe while you're doing that, we can just say like what we're actually working on in this knit and chat video. So I am actually working on a sock. So I haven't shown this before because I only cast it on a couple of days ago. This is a sock that I'm testing for Kath, who is the Mindful Melbourne maker, and it's her Canberra sock pattern. So it's a DK weight.
Oh, is that because Canberra's quite cold?
Yeah, I think so. Like, so she made a pattern for some 4-ply socks. It's her Melbourne sock pattern. Because like she's from Melbourne, and she was like, this is my sort of like home base go-to for a sock pattern, and Melbourne is my home base. So I think she calls the DK one, she called it Canberra because it's a bit colder in Canberra. And I've already finished one of the socks, and because this is a DK weight pattern, it's written for either DK yarn or 2 strands of fingering weight or a strand of fingering and a strand of mohair, like lace weight mohair held together. And so I did this pair I'm doing as 2 strands of fingering weight, but I'm doing it as a fade. So I'm taking like 2 strands of colour A, then I drop 1 strand of A and do an A and a B, then drop the A, do 2 strands of B, etc. So I'm just making this sort of like pink to purple to blue to green fade, and it's actually going to be a Mother's Day gift for Mum, which I need to get my skates on because Mother's Day is tomorrow, and
So
I've only finished 1 sock, and also because I guess like these socks, they look cool, but the disadvantage is that you have like, I don't know, like 30 ends to weave in. But I mean, even if I only finish 1 sock, I think I'll just show her what I've done. Yeah, and I guess I'll show them properly in our next podcast. They'll
probably an FO.
An FO. Then. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And what you're working on
my Q-shift Afghan, which is my
just
hold it up. My mitre square blanket.
Yep. So yeah, back to ceramics. I forgot what I asked you.
Whether if all the materials and stuff is
need
provided.
To provide.
Yeah, no, I think they basically just like for most of the sort of beginner classes, I think you need to provide just like an apron and an old towel, and obviously clothes that you don't mind getting a bit dirty. But all of the actual like clay and glaze is generally provided by the studio. Yeah. I guess because like it's in their interest that everyone's using the same type of clay.
And so for consistency and like that they can teach you kind of the same
yes. And I think certain clays are more suited to hand building, whereas others are more suited to wheel throwing. So I guess they wouldn't want someone to come in with this clay
as
that
they and say,
had their heart set on.
I bought my own clay, and then they say, it's not suitable for this purpose.
Yeah, either that it's not suitable. Like I think some hand building clays that have a lot of grog, which is sort of gritty particles in it, can be not very comfortable to throw with, because obviously as the clay is like kind of moving through your hands, that it would be a bit sort of like uncomfortable. And then I think also I haven't personally thrown with porcelain yet, but I've heard that porcelain is like very sort of like slippery and can actually be, if for a beginner, be quite difficult to work with. So I guess
like it's hard to control it kind of thing, or
I mean I've not experienced it, but if it's not really suitable, because I guess I would be ashamed if you were like really keen to try this particular hobby and then you kind of went, I mean, it would be the same with knitting. If you're like, I'm really going to get into knitting, and then decided to knit some insanely complicated lacework thing and found it really difficult, and then just decided, this is awful and I don't like this at all, kind of thing. But it wasn't because you actually hated knitting, it was just because you tried something that was way too hard.
Yeah, like I think for knitting, most people would recommend like a beginner to start with like a DK or worsted weight yarn, like not something like super bulky, but also like fingering weight, and
for their first project would just knit sort of like a scarf or something.
Like something that will go very quickly as well. So like I guess speaking of like the sort of like learning curve and stuff like that, and this is probably maybe slightly difficult to answer, but like how long did you feel that it took for you to start like making things that you were like pleased with the outcome and stuff? Like does it take like years or
I would say maybe within like the first year, and I'd say that's probably around the timeline that when after I've been going to classes for maybe about a year, that I started also doing some stuff at home as well.
Because
like feeling confident to like buy your own materials and do things without a teacher kind of supervising.
And did you buy most things from like the ceramic supply place? Or I know you seem to have actually quite a few like kitchen tools that you actually use.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of like sort of kitchen-y type tools, like, you know, cake decorating tools and stuff that can also be used. But I would recommend like having separate ones and not you using the same spoon that you cook with to use for your pottery. And then also, I mean, I don't know what the sort of market is like in other places, but I know definitely in Melbourne anyway, there's a pretty decent like Facebook buy, swap, sell group for people to sell, which I've got quite a few things on there, you know. People that have either not doing the hobby anymore, or maybe have decided they only want to work with one particular type of clay, for example, and then so all of the glazes they have that is suitable for other clays they no longer need. So that's something, I guess, when there's sort of broadly like 3 sort of different categories of clay, which is earthenware, mid-fire and stoneware, and that relates to what temperature they get fired to, and certain glazes are suitable for certain temperatures. So I've picked up a few times someone said, I've decided I'm only going to do mid-fire clay from now on, so I have no use for all of these stoneware glazes that need to be fired to too hot a temperature. They were just selling and pick up a few things.
They sell like materials, but also you've gotten some like tools secondhand as well, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I actually got my wheels secondhand.
That's right. Yeah. I remember.
You came and helped me pick it up. Driving Dad's van.
We borrowed our dad's like van, and Pia was too nervous to drive it, so I
hadn't driven it before.
I drove it to that lady's house. And to do it at home, like, what do you think is the requirements? Like, do you need an outdoors? Like, can you do it inside? Like, is that safe or?
I think like probably a lot of people, if they haven't done pottery, their assumption would be the sort of most dangerous aspect of it is the kiln or like the firing part, because obviously it's going to a very hot temperature, 1,000 degrees Celsius plus. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but very hot. But I think what is actually the most dangerous aspect of ceramics is the dust. Yeah. Because a lot of the materials, so clay and also glazes, contains silica dust, which is a very, very fine particle dust, and essentially once you breathe it in, you never breathe it back out. So it can accumulate in your lungs, and basically has the same effect on your lungs as asbestos, which obviously everyone knows is extremely dangerous. So I think that's really the key.
Ventilation.
Yeah, ventilation, and like making sure you clean up very well afterwards. And I guess like it wouldn't obviously not be possible or practical for everyone, depending on what type of place they live in. But for me personally, I have all my ceramic stuff in the garage, so it's somewhere that's separate, that it's not inside the house. And I mean, I don't particularly, apart from doing ceramics in my garage, I don't just go and sit in there and read a book or have eat in there and stuff like that. So it's somewhere it's separate and it's not inside the house.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, I guess, to be mindful of. And that I mean I have definitely seen videos of professional potters even who say that they do more so for hand building. I guess wheel throwing, it's also like the mess aspect that you wouldn't really do that inside your house.
Yeah.
But people who say they do all of their work at their at their kitchen table and that sort of thing, which I think is fine, like so long as you make sure that everything's very cleaned up afterwards and not leaving any like clay residue on surfaces that when it dries out it forms the dust that is then quite dangerous to breathe it in.
So it sounds like either garage or like a shed in the garden or something would be an ideal. Or to do it, I guess, at a class.
Which is, I suppose that's the other advantage of going to a class, is that you are not bringing all the dust and materials like into your home. Apart from a little bit that's on your clothes, but then obviously that gets washed.
And the classes that you've done, I suppose like every class is probably structured a bit differently, but do they say like, in this course we are going to make a mug or whatever, or can you go and say I would like to make this, and then the teacher kind of guides you?
I feel like all the classes that I've been to, they're more sort of like just
sort of like freestyle.
They're not like very prescriptive, like today we're making a mug, next week we're making a bowl kind of thing,
or like even techniques, like today we're learning, I don't know anything about ceramics, so I can't come up with an example, but like I did do Pia made this mug, by the way. It has this sort of like it's like a spiral, so it's like very it's comfortable to hold.
I did do like a short course, I think that was 6 weeks in like glaze chemistry.
Oh, cool.
And so that was a bit more like obviously like structured, that they were like this you had like a different glaze recipe that you made each week kind of thing, and discuss like all the different sort of like materials. And
do they teach you like how to blend like different colors? Because I presume it's not like just mixing paints, that like you mix blue and yellow and you get green, because there's chemicals that change when they're heated up, isn't there?
Yes, yeah. So it's sort of like chemical reactions. So, and different chemicals that will like have sort of different properties. Like you add more of this or less of this if you want your glaze to be more matte or more shiny finish and that kind of thing as well. So I mean that course like was interesting, and I don't regret doing it. But I think from doing it, I kind of thought like this is quite complicated, and like you have to have a lot of, I think, materials to kind of get started, like different raw materials to be able to mix your own glazes. That for me personally, I think just doing it as like a hobby and not doing it kind of full time, I prefer to just buy pre-made glazes, which is a more expensive way of doing it. But I think I just prefer rather than, because then I mean if you've got all these raw materials, you've got to have somewhere to store them. That I think some of the raw materials can get quite expensive, and I think there's a lot of experimentation as well that goes into developing. So I think a lot of like potters who do it sort of professionally for a living, their glaze recipe will be like a very closely guarded secret if it's something that they have developed themselves. To get a particular colour or a particular kind of finish that.
Well, I suppose maybe that's a little bit like yarn dyeing as well. Like I think even some, like I've seen like some like tonal colours, like they're not speckled or variegated, it's just like a sort of a tonal or semi-solid colour, and the dyer will say there's actually like 6 different like layers of colour in here, and it kind of produces something that looks, I guess, like this, like that it looks fairly uniform, but there is actually a lot of like nuance to the colour, and like it is something that they have actually like developed themselves through experimentation, I guess.
And I mean I think it's fair enough if people are asking like what's your recipe or whatever,
very hard
that they say respectfully, this is my
livelihood.
So I'm not giving it away.
For sure.
And I've definitely seen that with potters on Instagram and other forms of social media for the glazes, but also like particular techniques and stuff. People are asking like, how did you make this? That they'll say like, I'm not telling you, if you really want it you can buy it from my shop kind of thing.
Or you can figure it out how to do it yourself, just like I did, I suppose. Oops, I think I'm supposed to change colour now that I'm on the heel turn. But I guess that's probably a good time to sort of wrap up. But what would your like main bit of advice for someone who was maybe thinking about doing some ceramics? Like, do you think the best thing is to just do a workshop or a short course? Like, would you say that's the best way to get started?
I think so, because I guess once you really sort of start getting into it at home, obviously like with any sort of like crafty hobby, the materials definitely do start to add up,
and maybe a bit more so, because I feel like if someone was like, I want to like learn to knit, what should I do? I would probably say like buy some needles and yarn and just like start knitting. But I feel maybe by the sounds of what you're saying, like ceramics, maybe the initial outlay is
I think also like I would say and I mean this is obviously like a bit subjective because it's relating to sort of the aesthetics or look of things, but maybe a lot of people have a perception that like to do real pottery you need to be doing it on a wheel. But I think there's definitely like a lot of like very talented artists who only hand build, and I think like you can definitely make very, very nice things without a wheel. So I guess if people were thinking about getting into it, particularly at home, it's obviously a lot less expensive to get started with hand building as opposed to a wheel, because I think, I mean, in Australia anyway, to buy a new pottery wheel, I think you're probably looking at least $1,500 plus.
Okay. Yep. So that is quite a significant.
So it's quite a significant
amount of money.
Initial expense. And then I guess also for like firing your work, again, like kilns, I think start at several $1,000s.
Oh yeah.
Plus needing special ventilation because of all the fumes that are generated when you're firing things to those temperatures. So I think that's something that, I mean, I still take all of my work to like a community like studio where you just pay to have it fired. And I think also operating a kiln is kind of a skill in of itself as well. So that I'd rather just pay someone else who has the expertise and the facilities to do that. To do that for me. But yeah, and I think, yeah, for people who are sort of looking to get into it, I would say, like, definitely keep an eye out on Facebook Marketplace for buying, like, secondhand equipment and even clay. Like, I've definitely bought a lot of clay on Facebook Marketplace from someone who's like, you know, I bought 10 bags of this and I've decided I'm not going to use all of it, or...
just my interests have changed, or...
Yeah. And I suppose that's particularly good if you're, like... maybe thinking, I might like to try using this clay, but I don't really want to buy a full bag of it. So this person's giving away, you know, a couple of bags of, you know, leftovers for free that you can just try it out and see how it goes.
Yeah, see if you sort of, if it's something that you want to pursue, like in the long term.
But yeah, and I guess, just try out different techniques, different styles. I don't think I've found my sort of like niche style yet, and like maybe I never will. Like maybe I'll never have like a niche style. It will just be...
You seem to kind of get into a particular thing, like those spiral mugs. You made heaps of them, and then like now you're doing more of the like the flower tiles and bells like and stuff.
Things,
but I suppose it's just like with any type of hobby, like you can just let your interests like just go with the flow a bit. Yeah, that's the fun of it, I guess.
Yeah,
what have I done with my needle?
I think
so. I stabbed it through my sock.
Yeah.
I always do that with DPNs. I like just stab the needle through my knitting that I'm not using, and then I like spend 15 minutes looking for it.
Trying to find where it is.
I forgot. It's like
you're just using the sock as like a needle holder
in my project. So I guess we will probably wrap it up there. We're gonna go take
me babble on about ceramics for long enough.
Take doggos like for a walk.
One of the subjects that I could just talk for ages and ages about.
Yeah, that's like that. There's a meme that's like I think it's like Ralph Wiggum flying through a window, and it's like you got kidnapped and your kidnappers returned you after 2 hours because you wouldn't stop talking about, and then there's like a blank and you can fill it in.
So for you it would be knitting and
probably
for me ceramics.
Yes. But yeah, we have to go take Julie and Susie, the doggos, for a walk before it gets too cold. But what we can do is in our description box, we will leave... Pia has an Instagram account that she uses just for sharing ceramics. Why not? I think we've shared it before. It's nice. Yeah. I think she's not super active on it, but just to see if people wanted to see a few examples of her...
of different kinds and I mean I follow a lot of people on there, so you just want to see some like cool like ceramics accounts to check out, to have a look and
just like stalk her following list or whatever, and find some good inspiration accounts. But thank you for joining us for this little knit and chat. I think I basically I finished the heel on my sock, which is good. I'm just starting the heel turn now.
I only did like 2 rows.
That's okay.
I guess because I was talking too much.
No, that's okay. We felt that this was like
it would be a bit of an awkward if it was like knit and chat, but then we're just both silently knitting. It would be a bit weird. I don't think anyone would.
I feel like this was like the inverse of our yarn advent, knit and chat, because like Pia didn't do a yarn advent, and I did, and so I was just talking and you were listening. So this is more like you were like interviewing me. So thank you for joining us for this knit and chat episode. I think our next video after this one will be our just regular podcast episode where we share like whips and FOs and all of that jazz, maybe some ceramics even possibly. If I need to get organised and order that the string for those bells,
because
they will look nice once they're hanging up.
I think I've someone did recommend to me some like a shop that's in Melbourne that sells online, so like if I order from them it should quickly. I think their actual physical store was somewhere like Bayswater or something, like too far for me to actually drive there.
But thank you for joining us. We put everything in the description box, like links to our Instagram and Ravelry pages and all of that. So if there's information that you want, usually it will be in the description box. Otherwise, if it's not, you can always leave a comment, and we do reply to all of the comments on our videos.
Yes.
Speaking of which, if you did like this video, it would make our day if you give us a thumbs up. And leave a comment if you enjoyed listening to all of Pia's ceramics adventures.
I was going to say mumbo jumbo.
Mumbo jumbo.
Nice
I was going to say rambling actually, and I was like, I don't know. Pia's ceramics rambling mumbo jumbo. And if you did like this video but you're not subscribed to our channel, it would also be very nice if you subscribe to our channel. But otherwise, we will see you in our next episode. Until we see you again, we wish you happy stitching or happy
pottering.
Happy pottering.
Pottering.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the term pottering because it is just like also like just pottering around is a nice concept. I like to potter.
Yeah, happy pottering, whether it's pottering with yarn or with clay.
Actual pottering with clay or pottering just milling around the house.
Yes. All right. Bye.